I'm here in Larnaca, a city in southern Cyprus. Cyprus has always fascinated me because it's this vibrant European nation with stunning beaches and a booming tourist trade. But just a couple of miles up the coast from here and you're faced with this. The story that I wanted to tell you today is about how this small Mediterranean nation became home to one of the most hotly contested borders on the planet and one of the longest running UN peacekeeping operations. Since the 16th century, Cyprus had been owned by the Ottoman Empire. During this period, many Turks came and settled on this predominantly Greek island. Britain coveted Cyprus due to its strategic location close to 3 continents, 100 miles from the Middle East and 200 miles from the Suez Canal. In 1878, the then waning Ottoman Empire lost in a war against Russia. Seizing the opportunity, Britain conspired with them to allow them administration over the island in exchange for their support against the Russians. In 1914, as the world descended into World War I, the Ottomans sided with the Germans. This brought their arrangement with the British to an abrupt end, resulting in Britain fully annexing the island of Cyprus. After the end of the World Wars, Cyprus's story is one of 2 opposing ideologies, that of Enosis and Taksim. Enosis is the idea that Cyprus should expel the British and merge with Greece, whereas Taksim is the idea that the island should be partitioned into 2 halves, one for the Greeks and one for the Turks. Prior to 1954, calls for reunification with Greece were proceeding mostly democratically. That was until the involvement of a man named General Grievous. Not that General Grievous, this General Grievous behind me. On the 9th of November that year, he covertly landed in Cyprus at this spot with the goal of building a paramilitary organisation to fight for Enosis. This went on to be known as the National Organisation of Cypriot Fighters, or in Greek, EOKA. On the night of the 31st of March 1955, EOKA launched their campaign with 18 simultaneous bomb attacks in Nicosia, Larnaca, Limassol and Famagusta. This started a period known as the Cyprus Crisis, during which the British fought for control of the island. EOKA had the broad support of the local population, except for one key group who made up about 18% of citizens, the ethnic Turks. They feared a repeat of what happened when Crete joined Greece, leading to the expulsion of its local Turkish population, and as such were heavily opposed to the idea of Enosis. In 1958, in order to resist EOKA, the Turks went on to form their own paramilitary organisation, known as the Turkish Resistance Organisation, or TMT. Come 1959, the British could no longer retain control of the island, and so with Greece and Turkey they co-signed the Zurich Agreement, making Cyprus its own sovereign state, with Archbishop Makarios as its leader. One of the conditions of this agreement was that Grievous was exiled to Athens. The Constitution of Cyprus was built around a principle of bicommunality, ensuring representation for both Greeks and Turks in the parliament, as well as presidential veto powers. This well-intended design, however, led to parliamentary deadlock and resentment over the overrepresentation of the Turkish community. To combat this, Makarios put forward the Akritas plan that would have reduced the Turkish representation in the parliament. Accounts differ depending on who is asked, but this led to either the resignation or the expulsion of the Turkish legislator. From this point on, relations deteriorated fast. This all culminated on the 21st of December 1963 with an event that is known as Bloody Christmas. It started in central Nicosia when 2 Greek police officers halted some Turks who were riding a taxi home. A dispute ensued and from there violence escalated quickly. Over the next few days, EOKA and TMT clashed violently in the streets. Once all the dust had settled, 364 Turks and 174 Greeks had been killed. On top of this, 25,000 Turks had been displaced from their homes into enclaves around the island, where they lived under strict embargo enforced by the Greek population. In response to this violence, Turkey, Greece and the UK sent in an organisation known as the Joint Truce Force under the leadership of General Peter Young, who first established the Green Line that bisects modern-day Cyprus. Their mission was then later overtaken by the UN Joint Peacekeeping Force. Our story now comes back to that of General Grievous. Grievous had been residing in Greece since 1967 and had played a role in the military junta that had overthrown the government there. With his main goal of Enosis not having been complete and increasing doubt in Makarios's desire for union with Greece, in 1971 he returned to Cyprus to resume his efforts and found a new organisation with the imaginative name of Aoka B. Grievous died in January of 1974, but Aoka B lived on. Later that year, on the 15th of July, under the control of the Greek military junta and alongside the National Guard, Aoka B staged a coup, removing Makarios and imposing pro-Enosis leader Nikos Samson. They attempted to kill Makarios, but he fled out of the back of the presidential palace to Paphos, where he was rescued by a British helicopter. From there he was flown to Akrotiri, to Malta, to London, and then eventually on to New York, where he spoke about the events at the UN. 5 days after this coup, Turkey launched an invasion of Cyprus, codenamed Attila. It was here at this beach near Kyrenia in northern Cyprus that the Turkish forces first landed. The initial invasion only captured about 3% of the island before Turkey agreed to a ceasefire requested by the UN Security Council. In the following days, both military dictatorships in Greece and Cyprus collapsed due to the invasion. On the 14th of August 1974, there were meetings at the UN in Geneva, Switzerland to try and mediate between the two parties. Only an hour and a half after the negotiations failed, Turkey initiated their second phase of the invasion, this time on a whole different scale, involving 40,000 Turkish troops. The Turkish army advanced up to the Green Line, which had been established by the UN in 1963, in total capturing 37% of Cyprus's land area. Approximately 150,000 Greek Cypriots were displaced from their homes in the north, while 51,000 Turkish Cypriots were displaced from theirs in the south. Unlike the first invasion, which garnered some international sympathy, this second invasion was universally condemned by the international community. Just to give you an idea, here's Animaniacs with only the countries that recognise Northern Cyprus as a state. Turkey. Yep, just Turkey. That didn't, however, stop them going on to recognise the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus as its own sovereign entity in 1983. So what does Cyprus look like today? Well, 50 years on and the entire island has been cut in half by a UN buffer zone. It's a very strange place as everything within its walls has essentially been frozen in time and left as it was in 1963. At its narrowest in the heart of Nicosia, it's only a few metres wide, and at its widest it stretches up to several kilometres. Amongst all this, there are several enclaves, exclaves, minefields, UK territories, and a total of 7 crossings. One of the most fascinating parts about visiting this island has been seeing all the communities that exist in and around the buffer zone. I want to show you just a few of them now. I'm in an area called Varosha. Varosha was a once bustling part of the city of Famagusta. But in 1974, when the Turkish army first moved in, the Greek population took their belongings and fled, and this area has been abandoned ever since. Before you arrive, it's hard to get a true impression of the scale of the place. There's a small viewing platform here at the beach where you can see these buildings behind me, but beyond here it carries on for kilometres down the coast, all locked off by the Turkish military. I'm in an exceptionally strange place at the moment. I'm on the outskirts of a town called Pyla. Pyla exists within the UN buffer zone. It was one of the few places that after the invasion, the residents, both Greeks and Turks, decided to remain and live side by side. This area is a clash of 4 international borders. Where I'm stood right here is technically UK territory. And over there is a Turkish lookout point that guards the entrance to the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. So will Cyprus ever be reunified as one country? There have been a series of attempts at reunification, and in 2004 a dual referendum was put to the population on both sides of the border. 65% of Northern Turks were in favour, but only 24% of the Greek population were. This was largely due to security concerns over the fact that Turkey was going to get to keep troops within Cyprus. I'm sure this won't be the last time that I make a video on Cyprus, and I certainly would be pleased for an opportunity to revisit this amazing island.